working? We live? Are we live?
Hello.
We are. Okay, perfect. Perfect. So, I will be reading where I'm at in The Witcher, Book 6, Tower of Swallow, until Warden leaves her perch. So, you know, this will be interesting. This will be interesting. Alright. Where I was. Somewhere around page 84. I'm going to go back to 83 though, because I don't really remember where I was. She was called Yennefer of Vandenberg, and she was a most famous sorceress. May I not live to see her dawn. May I not live to see the dawn if I lie. Triss Marigold shuddered and turned, trying to see through the crowd and blue smoke densely filling the tavern's main chamber. She finally rose from the table, somewhat regretfully abandoning a fillet of sole in anchovy butter, a local specialty and a genuine delicacy. She was not roaming the taverns and inns of Bemervord to eat delicacies, however, but to obtain information. Apart from that, she had to watch her figure. The crowd of people she had to squeeze among was already dense and tight. In Bemervord, people loved stories and passed up no opportunity to listen to new ones. And the sailors who visited there in great numbers never disappointed. They always had fresh new I'm reading the Tower of Swallows until Warden moves from her perch. James. The Tower of Swallows. I'm on chapter 3 right now. Where I was. New repertoire of sea tales. Naturally, the vast majority were invented, but that didn't make the slightest difference. A tale is a tale, and has its own rules. The woman who was telling the story, and who had mentioned Yennefer, was a fishwoman of the Isles of Skellige, stout, broad-shouldered, with close-cropped hair, and, like her four companions, dressed in a waistcoat of narwhal skin, worn to a sheen. It were 19th day of month of August, in the morning after the second night of the full moon, the islander began, raising a mug of ale to her lips. Her hand, Triss noticed, was the color of old brick. Her exposed knotty arm must easily have measured 20 inches in girth. Triss's waist measured 22. At the crack of dawn, the fishwoman continued, her eyes sweeping over the audience's faces, our smack put to sea into the sound twixt and Skellig spike root to the oyster grounds, where we usually set our solemn gillets We made we made great haste, for a storm were nigh, the heavens darkening the cruelly of the west from the west. We aid puckle puck salmon from the nets quick, for otherwise, as you know yourself, when at last after a storm you can venture forth to see only rotten, chewed heads that remain in the nets, and catch is for naught. Her audience, the residents of Burn. Yeah, she's just sitting. It's so weird. Her audience, the residents of Berndervert and Ciderus in the main, mostly living from the sea and dependent on its existence, nodded and murmured their understanding. Trist usually saw salmon in the form of pink slices, but also noticed and nodded and murmured because she didn't want to stand out. She was there incognito on a secret mission. We sail into port, the fishwoman went on, draining her mug and indicating that one of the listeners could buy her another. We sail in and are emptying the nets, and blow me if Gudrun, Strada, I hate names. Sterol's daughter doesn't start yelling at the top of her voice and pointing to starboard. We look, and some summits flying through the air, and it ain't a bird. My heart stopped for a tick. For once I'm thinking it's a wyvern or young griffin. They sometimes fly over Spike Rug, true enough, but generally in the winter, usually with a west wind blowing. But meanwhile, that black thing, if it don't splash into the water, and a wave shoves it directly into our nets, it's tangled up in the net and splashes around in the water like a seal. Then all of us, we are 8 fishwives in all, catch the net and heave it on board, and do our gobs fall open. Blow me if it wasn't a woman, in a black gown as black as any crow. She's all caught up in the net, twixt 2 salmon, of which one, as I live and breathe, must have weighed almost 3 stone. The fishwoman from Skellige blew the froth from her refilled mug and took a deep draught. None of the listeners commented or expressed any disbelief, although not even the eldest among them could remember a salmon of such impressive weight being landed. The black-haired woman in the net, the islander began, is coughing, spitting seawater, and thrashing about. And Gulrun, who's expecting, is frantically yelling, "It's a kepi, a have fruit?" But any fool could see it weren't no kepi, for a kepi would be ripped up in the net long since, and besides, what monster would let itself be tugged onto a fishing smack? And it ain't no have neither, for it don't have a fishy tail. A mermaid always has one, and it fell into the sea from the sky, didn't it? And who's seen a kepi or avfreet flying in the sky, but Sked, Una's daughter, and she's always hasty, starts yelling Kepi, two and ups, and grabs the gaff, and aims at the net with it. And there's a blue flash from the net, and Scatty squeals, and the gaff goes left, and she goes right. Strike me down if I'm lying. She throws three. What the hell is that word? She throws three summerettes. Yeah, summerettes, and bangs ass down on the deck. Ha! Turns out, turns out a sorceress in the net, worse than a jellyfish. A scorpionina, or a numbing eel, and on top of that, the witch starts cursing something horrible, and the net starts hissing, a stinking and seeming as she works her magic inside. We see it won't be no picnic. The islander drained her mug and wasted no time in reaching for the next one. Ain't no picnic. She belched loudly and wiped her nose and mouth to catch a witch in the net. Yeah, to catch a witch in the net. We can feel as we live and breathe that the magic's making the smack roll harder. No time again. Hang around. Britannia, Karen's daughter, presses on the net with her foot and grabs me over the oar. Whack, whack, whack. The ale splashed high and spilled over the table, and several mugs fell on the floor. The listeners wiped their cheeks and brows, but none of them uttered a word of complaint or astonishment. A tale is a tale, and has its own set of rules. The witch understood who she were up againing. The fish woman struck out with her ample bosom and gazed around defiantly, and that you can't fool around with fishwives of Skellige. She said she were surrendering to us willingly like, and vowed not to cast any charms or incantations, and have her name as Yennefer of Venderberg. Her listeners murmured. Barely 2 months had passed since the events on the island of Thandel, and the names of the traitors bribed by Nilfgaard were remembered. The name of the celebrated Yennefer too. We takes her, the fishwoman continued, to Yark Karak on Crete in Kir Triple on Ard Skellige. Near seeing her after that, the Jarl was away on an expedition, but they said he returned first, received the witch harshly, but later treated her politely and courteous. And I was waiting to see what kind of surprise the sorceress would have conjured up for me for whacking her with an oar. I thought she'd badmouth me before the Jarl, but no, never said a word, never complained. I know that. Honorable witch. Afterwards, she'd kill herself When she killed herself, I even felt sorry for her. Yennefer's dead, Triss screamed, so overwhelmed she forgot about the importance of remaining incognito and the secrecy of her mission. Yennefer of Vandenberg is dead. Aye, she's dead, the fishwoman said, finishing her beer. Dead as a doornail. Killed herself with her own charms, making magic spells. Didn't happen long since last day of August. Just for the noon moon. But that's quite another story. Ugh. Dandelion, you're asleep in your saddle. Oh, Dandelion, you're asleep in the saddle. No, I'm not asleep. I'm just thinking creatively. Warden, you getting any of this? I'm amazed she's still there. It's wild. How's it going, James? Ugh. So we rode Dear Reader through the forests of Riverdale, heading west towards Caddoun, searching the druids who were meant to help us find Ciri. I shall tell you how it went before that, though for the sake of historical truth, I shall write a little about our company and each of its members. The vampire, Regis, was more than 4,000 years old. If he was not lying, it meant he was the eldest of us all. Of course, it might have been Poppycock, but who could check? I preferred to suppose that our vampire was being truthful, for he had also declared that he had given up drinking people's blood in irrevocably. Irrevocably and for good. Owing to that declaration, we fell asleep more calmly in our camps. I noticed that in the beginning, Malva and Kahar would carefully and anxiously feel their necks after waking, but they quickly stopped doing that. The vampire Regis was, or seemed to be, an utterly honorable vampire. If he said he would not drink their blood, then he would not. He did not. He did possess flaws, however, which did not result at all from his vampiric nature. Regis was an intellectual and liked to demonstrate it. He had the annoying habit of giving statements and truths with the tone and expression of a prophet, to which we swiftly stopped reacting, since the statements he gave were either genuine truths or sounded like genuine truths or sounded like the truth, or could not be proved, which in essence amounted to the same thing. But what was truly unbearable was Regis's habit of answering a question before the person asking had finished formulating it, why occasionally, even before the questioner had begun formulating it. Wait, what? Oh, there we go. I reread it. I always took that seeming expression of supposed high intelligence more as an expression of boorishness and arrogance, and those qualities which suit university or courtly circles are hard to bear in a company with whom one travels stirrup by stirrup, day in and out, and who sleeps under the same blanket at night. Serious squabbles did not, however, occur, owing to Milva. Yeah, Milva. Unlike Geralt and Kahar, whose inborn opportunism eventually allowed them to apt to the vampire's mannerism, and even led them to compete with him in that regard. The archer, Milva, preferred simple and unpretentious solutions. When Regis, for the third time, gave her an answer to a question as she was halfway through asking, she cursed him roundedly, using words and expressions capable of making even a Howdery mercenary blush in embarrassment. Surprisingly enough, it worked. The vampire lost his annoying mannerism in the blink of an eye, the conclusion thus being that the most effective defense against intellectual domination is roundedly to affront the domineering intellectual. Ugh. Milva, it seems to me, had been greatly affected by her tragic incident and loss. I write, it seems to me, for I am aware that being a man, I cannot imagine what such a loss means for a woman. Though I am a poet and a man of the quill, even my educated and trained imagination betrays me here, and I can do nothing. The archer swiftly regained her physical fitness, which could not be said for her mental state. It often happened that she would not utter a word throughout the whole day. From dawn to dusk, she would disappear and remain isolated, which worried everyone somewhat, until finally a crisis occurred. Milva released the tension like a dryad or a she-elf, violently, impulsively, and not very comprehensively. Yeah. One morning, in front of our eyes, she drew a knife, and without a word, she cut off her poet, just above the shoulders, just above her shoulders. It doesn't benefit me, for I'm not a maiden, she said, seeing our eyes hanging open, but nor am I a widow, she added, so that's the end of my mourning. From that moment on, she was her old self, brisk, biting, and mouthy. Ugh. Mm. Brisk, biting, mouthy, and inclined to use unparalleled minute. What the frick is that one? Unparalleled. Preliminary? Unpreliminary. Okay. And inclined to use unpreliminary language, from which we happily included that she had come through the crisis. The third, and no less curious member of the company was the Nilfgaardian, who kept trying to prove to us that he was not one. He was called, so he claimed, Kahir Mara. Oh my goodness, I'm not even gonna try and butcher his name. No way. Kahir Ma Dreifen? Kahir Ma Dreifen. Okay, yeah, sure, whatever. Ipt Shal Shielak. Kahir Mar Dreifen Apt Shalak. Whatever. Dandelion declared, pointing with his pencil at the Nilfgaardian. I have reconciled myself with many things which I don't like, and actually can't stand in this honorable company, but not with everything. I can't bear it when people look over my shoulder when I'm writing, and I don't intend to put up with it. The Nilfgaardian moved away from the poet, and after a moment's thought, squeezed his saddle, sheepskin, and blanket, and dragged them over to Milva, who was dozing. I apologize, he said. Forgive my obtusiveness, Dandelion. I glanced involuntarily out of pure curiosity. I thought you were creating a map or drawing some tillies of flowers. I'm not a bookkeeper, the poet said, losing his temper and standing, nor am I a cartographer, but even if I were, it doesn't justify taking a sly look at my notes. I have apologized, Kahir repeated dryly, making his bed in the new place. I have reconciled myself with and have become accustomed to many things in this honorable company, but I'm still accustomed I'm still accustomed to apologizing only once. Indeed, the Witcher joined in, totally unexpected, for everyone, including himself included, taking the side of the young Nilfgaardian. Wait, what? Indeed, the Witcher joined in totally unexpectedly, for everyone, himself included, taking the side of the young Nilfgaardian. Oh, okay. You've become devilishly touchy, Dandelion. One cannot fail to notice that it is somehow connected to the paper, which you have recently begun to deface with a bit of lead while we can. It's true, uh, Regis agreed, putting more birch breeches, birch branches on the campfire. Our minstrel has become touchy, not to say sensitive, discreet, and loving of solitude recently. Oh, oh no, having witness having witnesses when performing his nocturnal needs doesn't bother him at all, which in our situation one cannot indeed be astonished by. His shameful secrecy and oversensitivity to being watched extends solely to his scribbled notes, is perhaps a poem being written in our presence. A rhapsody? I've never seen that word before. What? What the hell? A P. A rhapsody. A rhapsody. An epic, a romance, a catazone? No, Geralt retorted, shifting towards the fire and muffling his back with a blanket. Muffling his back with a blanket. I know him. It can't be a verse, because he's not cursing, mumbling, or counting the syllables on his fingers. He's writing in silence, so it must be prose? It must be prose. Prose, the ain't no way. Yeah, it's prose. So many weird words today. Prose, the vampire flashed his pointed fangs, which he usually tried not to do. A novel, perhaps, or an essay. A mortality play. Damn it, Dandelion, don't torture us so. Reveal what you are writing. My memoirs. Your what? From these notes, Dandelion displayed a tube stuffed with paper, will rise the work of my life, my memoirs, bearing the title 50 Years of Poetry. nonsensical title, Kadhir declared dryly. Poetry has no age. And if our con, cons, concedes, and if no one concedes that it does, added the vampire, is it is it is decisively older than that. You don't understand. The title means that the author of the work has spent 50 years, no more, no less, in the service of lady poetry. Ugh. Ugh. In that case, it's even more nonsensical, said the Witcher. You aren't even 50 yet. Your writing ability was thrashed into you in the temple of elementary school at the age of 8. Even if we allow that you are writing rhymes in school, you've not been serving lady poetry no longer than 30 years. But as well as no, but as well as I know, for you've often told me about it, you only began seriously rhyming and composing melodies when you were 19, inspired by your love for Countess de Stale. That makes it 19th year of your service, Dandelion. So, how did you come up with this titilier 50 years? Is it meant to be some kind of metaphor? Aye, the bard said, puffing up. Trace broad horizons with my thought. I describe the present, but I pass into the future. I intend to publish this mighty work in some 20 or 30 years, and then no one will be able to cast a doubt on the titilier reckoning. Ha! Now I get it. If anything astonishes me, it's the foresight. You aren't usually bothered about tomorrow. Tomorrow still doesn't bother me much, the poet declared with superiority. I'm thinking about posterity, about eternity. From the point of view of posterity, Regis observed, isn't too ethereal at a beginning to write now in advance. On the basis of the title, posterity has the right to expect work written from a genuine 50-year perspective by a person of genuine 50 years store of knowledge and expertise or experience. A person whose experience amounts to half a century, Dandelion interrupted unceremoniously, must be, from the very nature of the case, a 70-year-old, declared old Gimmer, with his brain eroded by the hag of Cerolos? Someone like that should be sitting on the veranda, breaking wind, not not dictating their memoirs for people who would only laugh. I won't make that error. I'll write my biography at the height of my creative powers. Later, just before publication, I shall merely make cosmetic corrections. It does have its merits, Geralt said. Uh, it does have its merits, Geralt said as he massaged and co- continuously flexed his painful knee. Partly for us, for though without doubt we appear in his work, though without doubt he has mauled us in half a century and won't be especially concerned about it. What's half a century? The vampire smiled. A moment, a fleeting instant, Dandelion, a mere observation, in my opinion. Half a century of poetry sounds better than 50 years. I don't deny it, the troubadour, said the troubadour, crouching over the page and scribbling on it with a pencil. Thanks, Regis. Something constructive at last. Does anyone else have any comments? I do. Melva began unexpectedly, poking her head out from her blanket. Why are you goggling at me? Because I'm unlettered. Why are you goggling at me? Because I'm unlettered. Never heard that before. But I'm not stupid. We're on an expedition. We're going to rescue Ciri. We're traveling through enemy lands with sword in hand. This rubbish of dandelions might fall into enemy midst, and we know the poetister. It's no secret he's a gas bag, a sensation seeker, as well as a gossip. So let him have a care with what he's scrawling. So let him have a care at what he's scrawling, so we don't accidentally get hung because of his scribblings. You're exaggerating, Melva, the vampire said gently. Greatly, I'd say, Dandelion continued. I'd say the same, said the Nilfgaardian. I don't know what it's like with the Northlings, but in the Empire, profession of a manuscript isn't considered a Carmen? Isn't considered a Carmen, nor is it literally activity punishable. Geralt swept his eyes over him and snapped the stick he was playing with. But libraries are torched in cities captured by that cultured nation, he said in an unaggressive tone, but with a distinct sneer. Never mind, though. Mara, I agree with what you're exaggerating. Dandelion's scribblings, as usual, haven't any importance, not regarding our safety. Oh, sure, said the archer, getting hot under the collar and sitting up. I know what I know. When the royal bailiff were taking a scenic route our way around, my stepfather took to his heels and bolted into the forest, had stayed there for a fortnight without poking his nose out. Wherever there's parchment, there's a judgment, and he used to say, and whoever's name is captured in ink today is broke on the wheel tomorrow. wait, what? What? I gotta reread that. Wherever there's parchment, there's judgment. He used to say, and whosever's name is captured in ink today is broke on the wheel tomorrow. And he was right, the rotten bastard. I hope that whoresome's sizzling in hell. Melva threw off her blanket and, now, quite wide awake, moved closer to the fire. It looked, Geralt observed, like another long fireside conversation was in the offing. Yeah. We're fond of your stepfather, I declare. No. You weren't fond of your stepfather, I deduce, Dandelion observed after a moment's silence. I weren't, Melva said, audibly grinding her teeth, for he were a rotten bastard. He made advances when mother wasn't looking, in terrible time. Interfered with me. He wouldn't listen. So finally I couldn't stand it no more and took a rake to him, and he fell over, and I gave him a kick or two in the ribs and the privates. 2 days later, he were lying and spitting blood, so I decided to flee into the world. Without waiting to see if he got better, later I heard rumors he died, and mother soon after. Oi, Dandelion, are you writing this? Are you writing down? Are you writing down that? Are you writing that down? Don't you dare! Don't you dare! Hear me? No. Yeah. Don't you dare! Don't you dare! Hear me. It was strange that Melva was trekking with us, and the fact that a vampire was accompanying us was astonishing. Nonetheless, strangest, if not simply incomprehensible, were the motives of Katar, who had suddenly changed from an enemy to, if not a friend, then certainly an ally. The youngster had proven that at the battle of the bridge, unhesitantly standing with sword in hand beside the Witcher against his countrymen. By this deed he gained our appreciation and conclusively dispelled our suspicions. In writing hour, I have in mind myself, the vampire, the archer, for Geralt, although he had fought shoulder to shoulder with Cadhir, though they had looked death in the eye side by side, was still mistrustful of the Nilfgaardian and did not like him. He did, admittedly, try to hide his resentment, but he was, as I believe I have already mentioned, as simple as a spear shaft, incapable of pretending. Oh, as simple as a spear shaft, incapable of pretending. And his aversion crept out at every turn, like an eel from a rotten trap. The reason was clear: it was Ciri. It had been my lot to be on the Isle of Théoden that July new moon, when the bloody battle took place between sorceresses loyal to the kings and traitors incited by Nilfgaard. The traitors were helped by the squirrels, rebellious elves, and Cadhir, son of Thoralcrack. Cadhir had been on Thadel. I hate names. He had been sent there on a special mission. He was to have seized and abducted Ciri. Ciri wounded him defending herself. Cadhir had a scar on his hand, at the sight of which my mouth always went dry. It must have been hellishly painful, and he could not bend two of his fingers. Why are you telling me stuff I already know, man? Like, did I not read the... I already read all that. And the other... Whatever. And after all that, we rescued him on the Ribbon, where his own countrymen were carrying him away to cruel torture in fetters. Why, I ask, for what misdeeds did they want to execute him? Or was it only for the defeat on Thani? I'm gonna call it Thani. Cadhir is not Galunas, but I have a sensitive ear for whatever. I bet that means like false cities. Never seen that friggin' word before. Monosyllables? Is that what that is? Monosyllable, yeah. But I have a sensitive ear for monosyllables. The lad is not yet 30, but looks as tough as though he were a high-ranking officer in the Nilfgaardian army, since he speaks the common speech impeccably, which is seldom found among Nilfgaardians. I think I know what kind of army Kadhar served in and why he was promoted so quickly, and why he was sent on such strange missions, including foreign ones. For Kadhar was the man who tried once before to abduct Siri almost 4 years before, during the massacre of Sintra. The destiny guiding the girl's fate had made itself for the first time. By coincidence, I talked about this with Geralt on the third day of our crossing the Vintra. No, the Virga. The Virga. 10 days before equinox, as we were navigating the forests of Riverdale. That conversation, although very short, was fraught with unpleasant and worrying overtones. And at that moment, there was, right on the face and the eyes of the Witcher, a harbinger of horror which was to explode during the equinox, after we were joined by the fair-haired and Anjamin. What in the hell? I hate this. So many damn weird friggin' words. What is this? What is that? Is that even a real word? Anguima? Whatever, yeah, sure. The Witcher wasn't looking at Dandelion. He wasn't looking ahead. He was looking at Roach's mane. Just before her death, he began. Catalan forced an oath on several of her knights. They were not to let Ciri fall into Nilfgaardian hands during the fight. Those knights were killed, and Ciri was left alone amidst the corpses and conflagration in the cobweb of streets burning of the city. Of the burning city. She would not have gotten out alive, that is beyond a doubt, but he found her, Kadhir. He carried her out of the pit of fire and death. He rescued her heroically, nobly. Dandelion reined Pegasus back somewhat. They were riding at the rear, and Regis, Malva, and Kadhir were a quarter of a foot long ahead, but the poet didn't want a single word of their conversation to reach the ears of their companions. The problem was, the Witcher continued, that our Kadhir was only acting nobly by order. He was noble as a servant? Commandment. Yeah, commandment is. And did not swallow the fish because he had a ring on his throat. He was meant to take the fish to his master. He failed. So the master was angry at the commandment, and the commandment is now in our favor. And the corner is now out of favor. Is that why he's searching for a friendship in the company of fish? What do you think, Dandelion? The troubadour ducked in the saddle to avoid an overhanging linden branch. The branch already bore completely yellow leaves. But he saved her life. You said so yourself. Thanks to him, Siri left Sintra in one piece. And she cried out in the night, seeing him in her dreams. But he did save her. Stop dwelling on it, Geralt. Too much has changed. Why? It changes every day. Brooding achieves nothing save distress, which clearly does you no good. He rescued Ciri. That fact was, is, and will remain a fact. Geralt finally tore his gaze away from the horse's mane and raised his hand. Dandelion glanced at his face and swiftly looked away. That fact remains a fact, the Witcher repeated angrily. Metallic voice. Oh yes. He yelled that fact in my face at Thanid, yeah. And his voice stuck in his throat from terror, for he was staring at the edge of my sword. That fact and the cry were supposed to be the arguments which would stop me murdering him. Well, it did, and I didn't think it can be undone now. Which is a pity, for a chain ought to have begun then on Thanid. A long chain of death, a chain of revenge, about which tales would still be told after 100 years have passed, tales which people will be afraid to listen to after dark. Do you understand that, Dandelion? Not really. Then to hell with you. That conversation was Hydus, and the Witcher's expression had been Hydus too. What is Hydus? What is Hydus? Does anybody know? Hide us. What is Hydus? Repulsive. Oh, okay. Especially to the sight, revolting, ugly. Okay. Hydus. Oh no, it's hideous. I read it as Hydus. As hideous. I'm an idiot. I knew that word. I've seen that word before. I've seen it before. Oh, I did not like it when he was in a mood such as that, and went off on such a tack. I must, though, confess that the vivid comparison with the cormorant had played its role. I began to worry. A fish in its beak, taken to be schlubbed, gutted, and fried. A truly nice analogy. Joyful prospects. However, a good sense bled? A good sense bled fears. After all, if we were to continue with the fishy metaphors, then who were we? Small fry, small bonny fry, in exchange for a Mirgid Hall. Yeah, in Mirgid Hall, the cormorant Kadhir could not count on imperial grace. In any case, he was far from the pike he wanted to be thought of as. He was far from the pike he wanted to be thought of as. He was small fry, just like us. When the war was raging, both the earth and the people's fates like an iron barrow, who was paying the slightest attention to his. Oh, I see. He was a small fry, just like us. When the war was raging, both the earth and the people's fates like an iron barrow. Who was paying attention to the slightest? Who was paying the slightest attention to small fry? I am certain that no one in Nilfgaard remembers Kadhir now. Vadater de Redax, chief of Nilfgaardian military intelligence, listened to the imperial reprimand. So Emery von var Immers continued scoldingly. Yeah. An institution which devours 3 times as much of the state budget as education, culture, and the arts taken together is incapable of finding one man. This man simply disappears, goes into hiding. Although I spend astronomical sums on an institution from which nothing has any right to remain concealed. One man, guilty of treason, blatantly mocks an institution to which I have given so many privileges, funds as would give any innocent men sleepless nights. Oh, trust me, Vladimir. When the council next speaks of trimming the funds for convalescent services, I shall pick up my ears. You may trust that. Your Imperial Majesty, Vladimir de Redax croaked. Will make, I have no doubt, the right decision after weighing up the pros and cons, both the failures and the successes of the intelligence service. Your Majesty may also be certain that the traitor, Kadhir et Kalaakt, will not escape punishment. I have taken steps. I do not pay attention I do not pay you for your undertakings, but for results. And those are miserable, Vlatir. Miserable. What about Vilger Foltz? Vilger Foltz, yes. Where the hell is Cyrilla? What what are you mumbling about now? Louder. I think your highness ought to wed the girl we are holding in darn Runwan. Don Runwan. Yeah. We need that marriage. We need the legality legality. We need the legality of Sintra's sovereign theme fiefdom? Is that a word? Is fiefdom a word? It's a lot of strange words. What is fiefdom? What is fiefdom? Fiefdom? The estate or domain of a federal lord. Organization, departments, okay. No, Feldom, I see. It seems like it should be fiefdom, but it's Feldom. Okay. We need the legality of Sintra's sovereign Feldom to subdue the Isles of Skellige and the rebels of Aturir, Stept, Mag Turga, and the Slopes. We need a general amnesty, peace at the rear and among the supply lines, and we need neutrality of Astard Dranston of Convir. I know, but the girl from Donron is not Siri. I cannot wed her. May your Imperial Majesty forgive me, but does it matter if she's not authentic? The political situation requires your niptils? Nuptials. Okay, what the hell? What is a nuptial? What is a nuptial? Sorry, I don't fully understand what a nuptial is. What is a nuptial? What is a nuptial? Oh, nuptial? Nuptial? What is a T? It's a nuptial. Why is it nuptial? Nuptial? Nuptial, really? But the political situation requires your nuptials. Your nuptials. Urgently, the bride will be in a veil, and when we finally find the genuine Cyrilla, the girls will simply be exchanged. Have you taken leave of your senses, Vladier? The fake one was shown briefly at court. No one has seen the real girl in Sintra for 4 years, and rumor has it she has spent most of her time in Skellige than in Sintra. I guarantee that no one will see through the deceit. No. Your Imperial... No, Vladier. Know the real, find the real Siri. Pull your finger out. Find Siri. Find Kadir, and Vilgefortz. Vilgefortz in particular. He has Siri. I'm certain of it. Your Imperial Highness. Go on, Vladimir. Speak. At once, at one time, I was suspected the I suspected the so-called Vilgefortz case was nothing but provocation, that the sorcerer had been murdered or is being imprisoned, and the spectacular and ceremonious hunt allows Dijkstra to slander us and justify his brutal representation. Uh, I've the similar suspicions. You have. This was not made public in Redania, but my agents inform me that Dijkstra has found Vilfort's hideouts, and within it, there's two inns there, which is a typo. Within it, evidence of the sorcerer's bestial experiments on people. To be precise, on humans, foetuses. Oh, it's fetuses. Sorry. And women with child. Yeah. If Vilfortz has Cirilla, I fear that continued searches for her. Silence, damn it! On the other hand, Vlatir, the redact, quickly added, looking at the Emperor's furious face, all that might be disinformation intended to de-irrigate the renegade? Yeah. The sorcerer. That would be Dijkstra's style. You're paid to find Vilfortz and take Siri from him. For God's sake, do not digress and make any conjectures. Where is Tawny Owl? Still in Gesso? Still in Gesso. Why? He allegedly left no stone unturned and looked into the hole in the ground. Allegedly, the girl is not there and never was. Apparently, the astrologer was either mistaken or lying, or is lying. Those were all questions from his reports. What is he still doing there? Connor Skelligan, I dare you observe undertakings none too transparent measures. He is recruiting for his unit, the one your highness ordered him to set up in Fort Rocania, Machette, where he has established his base. That unit, I take the liberty to add, is an extremely doubtful bunch. But it is odd that towards the end of August, Lord Skelligan hired a notorious assassin. What? He arranged a hired thug with instructions to eliminate a criminal gang marauding around Giso, a commendable act, but it is a task for an imperial Connor. No, but is it a task for an imperial Connor? Is Indiva speaking through you, Vladimir, by any chance? And does it not give you reports color and flavor? I merely state facts, Your Highness. The Imperial stood up abruptly, to see the facts. I'm tired of hearing about them. Man, Warden has not moved. That is wild. That is crazy. It's crazy shit. Crazy shit. How many more pages are in this chapter, bro? It just keeps going. Some point. It doesn't. 113. I'm kind of close. Maybe. It was an extremely hard day. Vladimir the Redax was wary. In his schedule for that day, he had planned an hour or two of paperwork intended to protect him from drowning in pending documents. But the thought of it made him shudder. No, he thought. Easy does it. It can wait. I'm going home. No, not yet. My wife can wait. I'll go to Canterell, to my gorgeous Canterell, with whom I can relax so pleasantly. He quickly made up his mind. He simply rose, took his cloak, and left, a gesture full of disgust, holding off his secretary, who was trying to force a leather portfolio of urgent documents onto him. Tomorrow is another day. He left the palace by the rear exit, which opened onto the gardens, and walked along the path lined with cypress cypresses. He passed an ornamental pond where a carp introduced by Emperor Thos was approaching the venerable age of 132 years, as testamented by the golden consummerative metal attached to the grills of the immense fish. Good evening, Viscount. Vatir released the dagger concealed in his sleeve with a short movement of his forearm. The hilt slid by itself. The hilt slid into his hand by itself. Very risky, Renice, he said coldly. Very risky. Showing your burned countenance in Nilfgaard. Even as magical teleportation. You noticed. And Vilgerfortz assured me that you didn't touch, and assured me that if you didn't touch me, you wouldn't guess it was an illusion. Vlatir put the dagger away. He had not guessed it was an illusion at all, but now he knew. You were too great a coward, Renanis, he said, to show yourself here in person. You know what would befall you if you did. Is the Emperor still so determined to seize me and my master Vilgerfortz? Your insolence is Your insolence is disarming. Go to hell, Vedafort. There's too many freaking weird fucking names. Go to hell. We're still on your side. Vilderfortz and I, well, I admit we tricked you with the counterfeit Cirilla, but it was done in good faith. In good faith, may I be drowned if I lie. Vilderfortz believed that since the real one had vanished, a fake one was better than none at all. We reckoned it was all the same to you. Your insolence has stopped being disarming and has begun to be insulting. I have no intention of wasting time talking to an insulting mirage. When I finally get my hands on you, we shall have a conversation, a long conversation. So, until that time, a pitch? What is a pitch? That probably means goodbye, but I don't know, I've never seen that one before. A pitch. What is a pitch? It's literally a page. App. H. No idea. Appage. Renish. What's come over you, Vatier? In the past, even the devil himself appeared to you. You wouldn't forget to investigate before the exorcism? If you couldn't, by any chance, profit in some way. Vlatir did not grace the image with a glance. Instead, he watched the algae-covered carp idly churning the sludge in the pond. Profit in some way, he repeated slowly, pouting his lips contemptuously. From you, and from you, and what could you give me? The real Cirilla, perhaps? Perhaps your patron Vilderfortz? Perhaps Katar Apt Shirak? My goodness. Hold hard. Renice? Raised an illusionary hand. You mentioned him. Who? Kadhar? We shall bring you Kadhar's head. I and my master Vilderfortz. Have mercy, Renice. Vatir snorted. Reverse the order. As you wish, Vilderfortz. With my humble help, will give you the head of Katir, son of... I'm going to butcher the name. We know where he is and can pluck him out like a lobster from a pot if you wish. So you have such capabilities. Well, such good stool pigeons in Queen Maeve's army. Mavis army. Are you testing me? Renice grimaced. You really don't know. Must be the latter. Cut here, my dear Viscount, is. We know where he is. We know where he's headed and in what company. We want. You want his head, you shall have it. A head. A head, Vlatir smiled, which wouldn't be able to tell anyone what happened on Thanid. That's probably for the best, Renice. Said Renice, cynically. Said Renice cynically. Why give Cat here a chance to talk? Our task is to ease, not exacerbate the animosity between Vilderforce and the Emperor. I shall bring you the mute head of Kedhir. Will do it in such a way that it looks like your and only your achievement. Delivery in the next 3 weeks. The ancient carp in the pond fanned on the water with its pectoral fins. That beast, thought Vladir first, must be very wise, but why does it need that wisdom? It's still the same sludge and the same water lilies. Your price, Renice? Renitz. A trifle. Where is Stefan? Where's Stefan Skelligan and what is he plotting? Yeah, you know what? This has got to stop.